Good afternoon and welcome back to the 7th Annual International HitLab Innovators Summit. We are so excited to have you here with us today, wherever you might be in the world. Thank you for joining us. Up next, I am so excited to welcome our daily Innovators Showcase. Each day, we will welcome 5 innovators and startups to the virtual stage to pitch to our panel of investors. Today, please join me in welcoming Gyan Kapur, co-managing partner of RTP Seed, RTP Ventures, Adam Dakin, managing director of Healthtech for DreamIt Ventures, and Rachel Butler of Catalytic Impact Foundation, our distinguished panelists. Each innovator will have 7 minutes to pitch to the panel and a total of 10 minutes to answer the panel's questions. I'd like to remind you in the audience that you can learn more about each of these innovators at their virtual exhibit booths available on the side of your screen throughout the next 10 days. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first innovator to the stage. I'd like to welcome our first innovator to the virtual stage, Invino AI. Designing novel algorithms specifically for use in drug discovery, please welcome co-founder and CEO of Invino AI, Daniel Cohen. Welcome, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I suppose I'll just jump right into it. So I'm Daniel Cohen. As Justin mentioned, I'm a machine learning scientist by training. I'm also co-founder and CEO of Invivo AI. We are a machine learning team out of the Montreal Institute for Learning Algorithms developing new methods for AI-enabled drug design. And we're here today primarily to connect with new partners. So I know that this is meant to be an investor pitch, but if there are any pharma groups or academic researchers interested in machine learning for drug design, we'd be very happy to discuss potential collaborations after the event. So let me just start with a very quick introduction on us. We launched the company about 2.5 years ago to expand research that we had done as a founding team in AI-enabled drug design. We're very focused on developing new machine learning methods built specifically for drug discovery. So anything and everything you would need computationally to support a drug discovery program from start to finish. We're currently partnered with several leading pharma companies and academic institutes. We have an awesome team of 12 scientists working at the intersection of machine learning, biology, and chemistry. And we're spun out of and headquartered at the Montreal Institute for Learning Algorithms, which is the world's largest deep learning research institute. And we count some of the world's leading deep learning researchers, including Professor Yoshua Bengio, as close scientific advisors. So as many of the folks in the audience will know, a viable drug candidate has to satisfy a whole bunch of properties simultaneously. This is obviously an oversimplification, but a drug candidate must be sufficiently potent and selective while also satisfying a broad range of pharmacology and safety criteria. In the same way that solving one side of a Rubik's Cube often comes at the expense of another, solving for one criteria in drug discovery might create a liability that you then have to optimize out of your compound. And solving for all of these different constraints simultaneously for every potential drug candidate is an extremely challenging problem that we're working to solve. So how do you solve this with machine learning? Well, this is effectively an optimization problem in which we're trying to solve for multiple parameters or properties simultaneously. And these types of optimization problems are something that machine learning tends to be quite good at. What we can do is effectively transform drug discovery into a multi-parameter optimization problem. So here we might have an initial molecule that looks good only on a single dimension. And what we want to do computationally is very rapidly and very cost effectively iterate towards new molecules that we predict to satisfy all of these different criteria simultaneously. And in doing so, we can get to better drug candidates faster and cheaper than otherwise possible. So the way this works in practice is quite simple. We typically start a collaboration by learning predictive models from existing experimental data. So these are molecules that have been tested in assays relevant to that particular drug program. We can then use these predictive models to run virtual screens on commercial compound collections. If there are any machine learners in the audience, there are also interesting things we can do here with active learning to very rapidly improve model performance. What this allows us to do is identify novel compounds that meet the criteria relevant to that particular program. So what's shown on the screen right now are results from a real program in Parkinson's disease in which AI-generated molecules were 10 times more active, whilst also being significantly less toxic than those generated using the non-AI approach. We can then use this data to inform the design of novel molecules in new areas of IP space. And in collaboration with our partners, we can very rapidly optimize those molecules so they satisfy the desired properties. Everything that we're doing is built on many years of machine learning research that we've done as a founding team, some of it internally, but some of it with partners including Mila, Google, Pfizer, Merck, Harvard, MIT, Cambridge, and many others. The last 2 years, we've been taking these methods for molecular featurization, property prediction, generative design, and optimization, and validating them in real-world drug discovery programs. And our special focus, the thing that sets us apart from our competitors, is that we've been able to get deep learning working with much smaller data sets than standard methods. So as many of you will know, standard deep learning methods require huge amounts of data. The challenge in drug discovery is that it can be very hard to acquire or generate sufficiently large data sets for standard deep learning methods. For example, you can imagine you might be working on a novel target class we know inherently little about and therefore have little pre-existing data on. In order to unlock the true potential of deep learning in drug discovery, we therefore need new technologies capable of working with much smaller, much sparser, and much noisier data sets than what currently exists. And this is what we figured out, and this is what's been driving our recent traction. So over the last 6 months or so, we've signed discovery partnerships with some of the world's top pharma companies and academic institutes. We are also currently piloting or are actively in the process of closing partnerships with 5 to 6 other top pharmas and biotechs. And in all of these collaborations, what we're doing is working together to accelerate their discovery programs using our machine learning platform. And in terms of business model, what we've done is structure these partnerships so that incentives remain aligned between us and our collaborators over the lifespan of the collaboration. So specifically, when we're working with academic groups, what we're doing is supporting these labs with our technology for free, and in exchange, sharing IP on any drug candidates that we help discover. Whereas with our commercial partners, what we're doing is helping them to accelerate their discovery programs, and in exchange, we take an upfront payment prior to beginning the project, and then take downstream milestone and royalty payments on any drug candidates derived from our collaboration. And if any of this sounds interesting to you, we would love to connect and discuss further. For the investors in the group, we'll be raising our seed round early next year, and we'll be happy to revisit the conversation then. For any academic labs in the audience, we're currently supporting about 24 groups, and we'd be very happy to learn about your work and discuss potential collaborations. And finally, for any pharmas or biotechs, we'd be very happy to find time for a more detailed technical discussion with either your chemistry team or your computational team to discuss ways in which we could potentially collaborate. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much. At this time, we'll open it up to questions from our investor panel. Rachel, Adam, Gyan, take it away.
Yeah, sure, I'll jump in. Good presentation, Daniel. I like the Rubik's Cube analogy, but what I'm not as clear on is, and this might, I'm not a drug discovery guy, so that's a disclaimer, right? So folks who live in this world might already be where you need to help me get to. But the problem that you're actually solving, I'm not as clear. Is it a sensitivity problem? Is it a specificity problem? Like, hey, we look at 100 drugs, we can tell you which ones are going to work, or we can tell you which ones are not going to work. And then how do you like today, a drug company looks at 1,000 possible compounds to find one. We're going to make that 300 and you'll find one. Like, I'm just not crystal clear. I understand making the discovery faster, but I don't understand what part of that sort of chain you're impacting.
Yeah, for sure. In simplest terms, the problem that we're solving is how do you design as quickly and as cost effectively as possible the single molecule that satisfies all of these different constraints simultaneously. So we might have 30 to 40 of these different constraints for any particular drug discovery program. We want to query the massive amounts of chemical space that exists to identify that single molecule that kind of hits the sweet spot. And it's not necessarily about moving from testing 1 million molecules or evaluating 1 million molecules down to only evaluating 1,000 molecules. It's about ensuring that the molecules we're actually making in the lab, in the physical world, are the ones that have the highest likelihood of success. So rather than having to evaluate in a typical drug discovery program, maybe 1,000 molecules, we can get there with 100, 200, and get there much faster.
So where, I'm a big pharma company. Tell me how you're going to deliver an ROI for me. I spend $1 million now. I'm going to spend 100 with you. Or it takes me 9 months now. I'm going to do it in 3 months with you. Like, I'm going to test 100 and spend it. So I'm going to save me time, but I'm going to test 50 instead of 1,000. Like I'm really trying to get at the ROI of this.
Yeah. So combination of all of the above. How can we get to that optimal molecule as quickly and as cost effectively as possible? So we're going to save time. We're going to test less molecules, and that's also going to save us money. And because we're guiding our search computationally, we are hopefully getting to better molecules than had we not used these computational methods.
Excellent.
Daniel, I also want to commend you. Great presentation. I have a question on sort of the competitive landscape. It does seem like we're seeing AI more and more incorporated into in various ways into drug discovery. So what do you bring that's unique to this, and what does the competitive landscape out there look like for you?
Yeah, so it's absolutely a very active space right now. There are companies applying machine learning to every part imaginable, from the early discovery pipeline through clinical stage development to commercialization. We think that over the next 10 years or so, every drug discovery program will be powered by machine learning. And we want to build a platform that effectively is powering that shift. Right now, the ability to work with very small data sets has been hugely important to our partners. It allows us to work on novel target classes. It allows us to optimize these compounds for properties for which it's hard to generate large data sets. This has been a significant differentiator, and this was kind of the core thesis of the company. And that's how we've been, I think, able to attract pharma interest in a relatively short period of time.
Thank you, Daniel. Outstanding. Thank you so much. Again, Daniel Cohn and Vino AI. You can learn more at their virtual exhibit booth on the side of your screen. Up next, I'd like to welcome Tahir Jan-Mohammed, founder and CEO of Managing Life, a digital health solution lowering the human and financial cost of chronic pain. Welcome, Tahir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. As Justin mentioned, my name is Tahir Jan-Mohammed. I'm the founder and CEO of Managing Life. We're a digital health company that's entirely focused on helping people with chronic pain. We've already helped over 50,000 people globally. Our solution has been licensed by 7 different hospitals in North America, including a VA in San Francisco. And our solution has been licensed by 2 insurance companies who represent 2.5 million lives under coverage. Now, I do want to take a step back and talk about the cost of chronic pain. It's a highly prevalent chronic condition, and it costs more per year than any other chronic condition. It's the #1 reason employees take time off work due to medical illness after the common cold. It's the biggest driver of healthcare costs, more than diabetes, more than heart disease. And it is also the leading reason people file a disability claim. Now, the reason chronic pain costs so much is because it is very challenging for both patients and those who treat it. For patients, it's often comorbid with anxiety, depression. Up to 70% of people who have chronic pain also suffer from these mental health conditions. And it's extremely difficult for them to explain what they're going through. I can speak to this firsthand. My mom has severe fibromyalgia. So I grew up with her telling my dad and her doctors, you just don't get what I'm going through. And that's true for millions of people with chronic pain. And there tends to be a dependency on doctors or medications just to make it through to the next 30 days. Many times that is an opioid. Now, on the flip side, for clinicians, it's extremely difficult to actually tell what's working and what's not. And once someone leaves the clinic, there's no visibility into their progress. But I think the biggest opportunity is the lack of self-management tools to manage chronic pain. You guys are very active in digital health, so you've probably seen hundreds, if not thousands, of digital solutions for managing diabetes or mental health. But when it comes to chronic pain, there is a big gap. Now, I believe the root problem associated with chronic pain management is how it's currently measured. This is the gold standard developed out of Stanford in the 80s. And this paper-based questionnaire is now obsolete in the world of COVID-19, where most visits are done by telemedicine. I personally spent 8 years as a management consultant in IBM's strategy and analytics practice. And we used to have a saying, you can't manage what you can't measure or monitor. Now at IBM, we were talking about systems, but that's very true for the world of pain. That's why our solution better measures pain so that it can be better monitored and managed. This is an actual report that comes out of our solution. It facilitates improved communication between patients and doctors and allows clinicians to make more effective treatment decisions. It's one of the 3 components that comprise our Manage My Pain solution. The first is an app that allows people to track what they're feeling. And because it's based on acceptance and commitment to psychological therapy principles, it in itself is an intervention. As people use it and record what they're feeling, we play back that information through charts and graphs to highlight patterns and trends. Is my migraine getting worse when it's cloudy outside? Is that oxycodone really helping my back pain? I like to describe it as the Fitbit for pain. We then take this information and we translate it into these reports that are used to facilitate better communication and enable the clinicians to make better treatment decisions. Every clinician loves getting these reports because it makes their job easier. And then finally, a unique aspect of our solution is that we can enable remote monitoring of these patients outside of the clinic. Because we have so many users and so much data, we've built in advanced analytics to flag at-risk behaviors weeks, sometimes months sooner than ever possible before. The Toronto General Hospital, for example, is using our solution to help wean people off opioids after major surgeries.
Hey, Taher, I'm going to jump in. They sort of
Yeah,
suggest
for sure.
that we ask questions during the pitch. And what I want to get clarity on here, are you effectively just I don't want to say just, but you're digitizing sort of traditional analog pain scale measurements?
Absolutely. So yes, it's all subjectively reported by the patient, but the way that we elicit this response in itself is based on acceptance and commitment therapy principles. So we actually reflect on people's accomplishments and achievements, and in that respect is itself an intervention beyond just data collection.
So it's great that you're doing this. It's great that you can engage remotely. I definitely see that as enabling. But how is the data different than what I would be getting? You know, where's the decision support piece of this that enables that, you know, other than great, no paper, there's efficiency there, patient engagement remote, there's efficiency there. But I guess I'm sort of getting at where's the real IP here, you know, around the platform.
Sure. So the status quo is to collect that outcome information once every clinical visit, which is every 2 to 3 months for a chronic pain patient. What we do is we collect that information once or twice a day. So we have significantly more data and can give a more objective view into the day-to-day trends of a person's progress relative to the status quo. So at IBM, if we were to make a decision, even if it was a business decision on 2 data points over 3 months, which is what's happening in pain today.
That makes perfect sense. But what I'm not getting is how is that defendable? So I whip up an app like you, I can survey the patients twice a day, just like you can.
The way that we actually survey the patients is based on clinically validated approaches that are unique to our solution, which brings me to my next slide. We are the only digital solution for chronic pain that has clinical validation, period. There are a lot of solutions out there on the market, but none that have this proven validation. Over a multi-site study conducted by Canada's largest academic hospital versus a control group, our solution was proven to actually improve pain outcomes in a statistically significant manner. And those two key domains, anxiety and pain catastrophization, have been consistently linked to increased medical spend, medical utilization, and opioid use and misuse. So it's not just the data that we collect, it's also the way that we present it to facilitate improved communication. And it's also the way that we collect it enables self-management, and in self is actually a self-management psychological intervention.
What was the control group for that?
The control group were people who didn't use our solution but received standard of care, or people that registered but didn't use our solution for at least 30 days. So we included both. Now, on the flip side, we have real ROI. Over a 2.5-year period with a disability carrier, people who used our solution had a 7-month shorter disability claim duration versus a 5-year historical average compared to a matched cohort. This represents $20,000 per client saved for the disability carrier over the life of that claim. Now, the reason our solution works much better than anything else on the market is because we have an unprecedented ability to engage people with chronic pain. The typical top performing health app has a 30-day retention rate of about 15%. Now, a 30-day retention rate is from the time of installation to 30 days later, are they still using it? Our solution has over 4 times that amount. And that's been validated again at the Toronto General Hospital and published in a peer-reviewed journal article in October of this year. We are also the top ranked pain app in the US on both Android and iOS, and we've been like that for years. Now, our solution, however, our business model is not to sell apps to people in pain, nor is it really to license our solution to pain clinics or doctors. Instead, we license our solution through a SaaS model, per employee or per member per month basis, to organizations that are financially motivated to manage pain. Employers want to help reduce absenteeism in their workforce due to pain. Health plans want to reduce medical spend associated with chronic pain, and that is largely relevant for capitated reimbursement plans like Medicare Advantage. And then finally, disability carriers want to reduce claim durations by helping people get back to work faster. We've already closed $1 million in contracts. 3 of our initial customers have signed renewals to their initial contracts. including RBC Insurance. And we have a very strong pipeline of over $9 million with US and Canadian health plans and disability carriers. We actually hope to launch our very first pilot in Q1 of next year with a leading Medicare Advantage national plan, where that post-pilot deployment is quite significant in the order of millions of plan members. Our target is to reach 12 million ARR within 3 years. We've partnered with both RGA Reinsurance in the US and Munich Re in Canada to help facilitate introductions largely on the disability carrier segment of our business. Now, right now, we do measuring and monitoring, but we want to use machine learning and our proprietary data asset, which is now one of the world's largest, to recommend automatically the appropriate self-management tools and techniques so that we can drive even more value to our user base and to our customers. And once we integrate with virtual care, we will be able to deliver all of the services that your gold standard multidisciplinary pain clinic can offer, but we'll be able to do it digitally, remotely, and at a fraction of the cost. We are going to be the world's first digital chronic pain clinic.
Tahir, can I jump in?
Yeah, for sure.
Quick question. So you talked about the Toronto General Hospital using this for helping people get off opioids, if I heard you correctly. So can you talk just as sort of a case study of how this could be used effectively within an organization or within a system? Can you talk a little bit more about that and how it's being used and what the results are?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, health systems and pain clinics aren't necessarily our customers just because they aren't necessarily financially motivated to better manage chronic pain. Now, if we look at more of an at-risk provider, like an integrated delivery network, that is a different situation. A really good use case is after major surgery. Approximately 15% of people who go through a major surgery are still taking opioids 6 months after major surgery. And so that was true at Toronto General. They created the transitional pain service that helps wean people off off opioids and prevent chronic pain. And our solution is the technology that they use to facilitate the monitoring and the proactive involvement of their clinical team to help that process. Now, the results, as were published, is that a significant adoption, increased satisfaction by both patients and clinicians, and when used in conjunction with the rest of the service, has driven results in terms of weaning people off opioids.
Justin, do I have time for a question, or should we?
Yeah, we can do one more question. Go ahead.
Sure.
I guess my question for you would be, one of the challenges with chronic pain or just pain in general is that the biomarkers for this kind of disease aren't really all that well understood. Have you guys looked into, and this is less related to defensibility or business model, but just have you done any studies of kind of just creating a true ground truth for chronic pain? How do you pick the parameters that you're measuring? And have you thought at all about being a little bit more thoughtful about what you're measuring to maybe get a better ground truth than like a pain scale invented in the 1980s based on like what some random guy said?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question. So to your point, and as you alluded, there is no objective biological marker for chronic pain. It doesn't exist. There's no research that's proven that. Pain in its very nature is subjective. It is based on one's own perception and one's own mental state, and it is individualized. So you shouldn't be comparing one person's pain against another. Our method is to compare one person's pain against their own pain over time. And even though we do record pain scores, our focus is on something that we developed called the daily reflection. It is a self-report reflection on accomplishment and achievement. It is very much a functional measure on based on acceptance and commitment therapy. That is really the focus of our solution and why it adds a lot more value. The pain scale is just there because that is traditional, as you mentioned, but it isn't front and center to what our solution measures.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gyan. Thank you, Tahir, for your presentation. We're going to be moving on now to the next one. I'd like to welcome to the stage our next presenter. So if you could please stop sharing. I'd like to also remind our audience that at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an Audience Choice Award. At the end of the hour, we'll be activating that poll for you to choose your favorite pitch from the hour. But without further ado, up next, we'd like to welcome Mohsen Amrani, Business Development Manager at OPTT, a clinical trial validated telepsychiatry solution powered by proprietary machine learning algorithms. Take it away. Thank you.
Hello, thanks for this great opportunity. My name is Mohsen Amrani. I'm the CEO of Opt, the online psychotherapy tool. Each year, around more than 60 million people have live with mental health problems in US and Canada, but more than 2/3 of these people do not receive any care for their problem. And that is because the system is currently inefficient, expensive, and inaccessible. Think of a high school student not receiving any care for their anxiety because of the stigma of the mental health care, or a busy parent, that doesn't find the time to seek help for their problem, or somebody who cannot afford the high expenses and have to wait a long time for a public service. And on the other hand, given the size of the problem, we simply do not have enough clinicians to provide the traditional face-to-face care. And this is just going to get worse. With half of the psychiatrists practicing today, retiring by 2025, this is just going to get worse. And this shows itself at the time of a crisis like the COVID pandemic. And while it is not possible to increase the number of clinicians at the short term, we could increase the efficiency of the time they spend with each patient. And that is exactly what we are doing. UP is a virtual digital mental health platform targeted at healthcare organizations to increase their care efficiency and patient capacity by up to 4 times. Our clinically validated streamlined digital care plans and our proprietary AI algorithms equip clinicians with the smart tools designed to support, monitor, and interact with their patients longitudinally. And we know it works because we have tested that, and we have shown 25 to 45% symptom reduction in a range of diseases from depression to anxiety to personality disorders and many more. Well, how does it work? We equip, have these structured digital care plans for different diseases that, include therapeutic content, personal training, feedback templates that the care providers could use to streamline their interactions with their patients and handle each patient within 10 to 15 minutes instead of 1 hour or an hour and a half.
So who are when you say care providers?
Yeah.
Right, who are we talking about here? Are these psychiatrists?
They could be psychiatrists,
pediatrician. Who's I guess it gets to your go-to-market.
Mental health.
Once you answer that, how specifically does it fit into their workflow?
So if we're talking about mental health providers, that could be a psychiatrist, that could be a social worker or coaches. Our plan is we have in our optimal team is a team that is supervised by a psychiatrist and a few social workers and coaches who do the bulk of the job. And if needed, do a step care and push the care towards the psychiatrist. So our customers are healthcare organization. Now that healthcare organization could be as small as a private clinic or bigger like in a hospital or a telemedicine company or even an insurance company. We are not at this moment going after the smaller clinics. We are the target at this point. We are focusing on telemedicine companies, synergistic telemedicine companies that have similar, they already have the online presence, and they would always either want to, optimize the care providing, behavioral care providing, or add that to their, products. Yeah. So the most important thing, and one thing that separates us from a lot of our competitors, is our clinical validation. All our content has been clinically validated across 8 clinical trials, and we are conducting more in the upcoming months. So anything that goes on the platform is connected to a clinical trial, is connected to a peer-reviewed article. And more importantly, the AI powers every step of the interaction. We have clinical assistants that helps the clinicians to write the feedback and personalize it to each patient. We have algorithms that help with triage and diagnostic and outcome prediction for each patient and what gonna happen for each patient, and also diagnostic algorithms that is necessary for our long-term care plan, so we can evaluate patients' mental status outside the clinical setup. As I mentioned, our business model is a subscription-based business model, charging organizations per number of patients served on the platform per year. We have additional pricing for specialized care plans like addiction or chronic disease management like cancer and diabetes. So the size of the market, the health expenditure on mental health problem is $250 billion a year. And 6.3 billion of that belongs to virtual care, and 2.3 belongs to virtual behavioral health software and infrastructures. Our goal is to capture 5% of this smaller, the infrastructure market within the next 5 years. We have so far have a multi-year contract with the second largest telemedicine company of Canada, EQ Care, with customers like Walmart Canada and 500,000 members under their cover. And this is just for before COVID. After the COVID, the mental health has shifted a lot towards virtual care. And so this is more like the space right now. So most of the mental health is going online and virtual, and this is the prime time for us. And we have just the right team to do that. We are not just a bunch of developers who decided to solve mental health problems. Our solution is rooted in deep clinical research. Dr. Alavi, our chief medical officer, is a pioneer in online CBT. She has more than 14 years of research experience. She has a lab at Queen's University, which is one of the top 5 medical universities in Canada, looking into validation of new therapeutics. I myself am a medical doctor. I have a PhD in neuroscience and a postdoc in computational neuropsychiatry, and I'm an expert in combining basic science and clinical functionality. We have won the 2018 Mental Health Innovation Zone Award from the American Psychiatric Association, and we have a partnership with some of the most reputable health incubators in Canada and US. And more importantly, given our expertise, we have been commissioned by Springer Nature to write the first handbook on how to do online CBT. So we have literally written the book on this. We are looking for raising a $2 million seed round and looking for a lead and strategic investor. We already raised $200K bridge funding from a strategic partner. We have $1 million soft commitment from the same strategic partner. And the main goal is to use it to expand our activities and business activities in the US market. Before I finish, I just want to leave you with this plot. This is the number of online health claims over the last 2 years in the US. As you can see, till February, it was around, for instance, first of all, behavioral care is the blue one. There was 166,000 claims each month, which jumped to 4.9 million claims just in 2 months. And although it's a little lower now, it is still more than 23 times higher than before. So the time is ripe, and we want to hit the market right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohsen. Thank you so much. We'd love to open it up now to questions from the panel. Gyan, Adam, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Mohsen, I'm wondering, you said you had a partnership or a client with the largest telehealth organization in Canada. Do you have other clients yet? And what does the revenue look like sort of going forward from here?
So essentially, this EQ Care is a channel partner because they not only provide care directly to the patients, they are providing our solution to the Quebec government. We have a long-term partnership with Queen's University Department of Psychiatry. We have a few smaller clinics, to essentially test the efficacy and ROI for smaller clinics. And right now we are in talk with a few different telemedicine company in the US to implement our solution. So far, as I mentioned, this year we had around $150,000 revenue. And we are hoping, we have around 2,000 patients on the platform. With our contract, we are hoping that by the end of Q1, we will get to 4,500. And hopefully by the end of 2021, we are going to be hitting 10,000 patients on the platform.
Excellent, Mohsen. Thank you so much. And I have just one question here I'd like to ask from the audience. Ruchi is asking, how do you use AI for patient feedback? Can you share some successful outcomes or case studies?
Yeah, so we have a few different things that we do. We have natural language processing that actually patients, everything is asynchronous. So patients write 1 or 2 pages of homework each week. Our algorithm goes through the content of the patient's homework and automatically highlights the most sensitive and symptom-related sentences based on which the clinicians can write their feedback. But we are using this, for instance, to evaluate patients' mental status. We can predict patients' mental status by 90% specificity just based on their homework, the text. And we can actually predict a patient dropout 3.5 weeks in advance of them drop out with 70% accuracy. So we can tell the clinician that, okay, this patient, there's an 80% chance that this patient is going to drop out. So you might add a medication or add like video face-to-face to your plan.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohsen. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you much.
Up next, we'd like to welcome Tom Ross, CEO at Andgo Systems. Andgo Systems is an automated absence management and employee communication tool for complex organizations in healthcare. Please join me in welcoming Tom Ross and Andgo. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. As Justin mentioned, my name is Tom Ross. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Andgo Systems. And for the panel, I'd just like to focus your mind for a second, as the next 5 to 6 minutes are going to sound a little different from the usual pitch. Today, I'm here to introduce you to a profitable company that has bootstrapped its way to booking $3.5 million in annual recurring revenue today. This has been done by offering an enterprise SaaS product to healthcare providers. We are in the process of looking to raise capital for the first time in order to accelerate our growth. Now, speaking of growth, the traction that we have in the marketplace today is expanding. We doubled our realized ARR in 2020 to 1.9 million. This isn't to be confused. We have booked 3.5. We're in the process of implementing it. To date, we have $15 million in future value contracts signed. We have 140,000 end users, and we have 100% client retention rates since inception. So anyone who's ever started to work with us continues to do so to this day. We've had multiple renewals from several clients, and our longest contract is currently set at 10 years. To kind of getting to what we're doing and how we're doing this is that using process automation, Andgo fills vacant shifts, freeing organizations time from the scramble for coverage. What this means is that when a nurse calls in sick, Andgo automates the entire process of finding a replacement in line with organizational and collective requirements. So why does this matter? Without Andgo, this is what this process looks like. 12 stages, dozens and dozens of steps, and 42 minutes to fill one role. And also a lot of uncertainty around whether or not a replacement will be found. So one question we get is why now? Why does this matter now? And with organizations, we've seen with COVID a more willingness to solve this problem. COVID has pushed labor resources to the brink, and these time-consuming processes for labor redeployment are not acceptable at the best of times, and these surely are not the best of times. So introducing Andgo. with Andgo, this process is completely automated. An employee calls in and Andgo is able to automate each of the 5 different touch points and absence travels through an organization. With this, organizations are free to focus on care delivery and they're able to fill more shifts faster with the right people. Andgo is able to do this by working alongside existing legacy IT systems. We don't replace anything in terms of scheduling or HR. We're leveraging the data that's in there to be able to transact and automate this process. From a validation standpoint, Andgo's been in use for over 5 years and has created tremendous value for each of our customers. On average, our customers are saving on $3.50 for every dollar they're investing in Andgo. Shifts are filled 7 times more efficiently. The transparent nature in which shifts are provided and the standardized rules that are applied consistently each and every time has built trust amongst employees. And so this trust is translated in a reduction in grievances of 80%, and also an increase in staff satisfaction with scheduling services by 3 times. We have a successful solution, a sticky solution that's automated a complex manual process that our customers love. Now, as a Canadian, I'm told a lot that we don't do a very good job of promoting ourselves. So I'll let our customers do that for us here at this point. And for anyone who hasn't been in Saskatchewan in winter, this tells you that we're doing something great. If someone's willing to consider coming here in winter, you know, our solution is definitely solving a problem for them. So as far as where we're going, our vision at Andgo is to fill every shift. Right now, we've completed phase 1 of this plan. This phase 1 is process automation. Process automation provides a lot of value for our customers. But the limitation of this technology is that it's reactive. It doesn't start until an employee calls in sick. Once that happens, we can automate the workflows that go around finding a replacement. This takes us to phase 2. Phase 2 of our plan is to incorporate AI and machine learning so that we can begin to predict future vacancies along with the employee's likely response to those vacancies of picking up these open shifts. With this data, Andgo will be able to proactively fill future shifts by maximizing customers' existing HR resources. And so being able to forecast demand is going to create a lot of value as far as making sure that these urgent shifts don't show up and create a lot of havoc in that same day. Now, once again, back to COVID. COVID has definitely sort of strained the resources that these hospitals have, these organizations have. And so what folks are learning and what organizations are learning is that sometimes you don't have enough people, especially when people are strained as much as they are currently right now and in the different healthcare systems. And so what happens then is that when you exhaust your existing internal resources, you have to look outward. You have to look out to staffing agencies, traveling nurses, different employment placement services. And so this takes us to phase 3 of our plan. Phase 3 is to basically build a bridge to these organizations so that this shift can be filled with their employees, with their workers. And so what's sort of an important distinction is that you see a lot of investment in that agency world these days. And
so Tom,
reason. Yes.
My fund has looked at several sort of competing platforms here. And one of the challenges that we've seen, particularly in the US market, is that significant enterprise health systems typically have built out some type of an internal solution for this. So what would make this, I'm sure it's better, but they've already got something, they perceive that it works okay. Why would they want to switch to your platform? Or maybe that's not your go-to-market. Maybe you're focusing on some other segment.
Yeah, no, Adam, that's a great question. I was checking it out. Proasys or Process, it was one of the companies that sort of jumped out as something similar in your portfolio there. What you said there is okay. And what we're finding today is that okay is not good enough. And so when you talk about, oh yes, we automate, a lot of people claim that they're automating these different steps, but what they mean by automation is that this piece is automated and there's 17 steps to lead up to it. Now the stress that the system's under, and maybe it's a factor of timing, but being able to not just automate that one piece, but looking at the whole absence management process holistically. So what we talk about often is with organizations is the biggest pain point they talk about is around call outs. And that's just one of 5 aspects that is automated. We go deeper than that and saying, okay, well, how are you onboarding these requests? Additionally, with healthcare in complex environments and unionized environments, there's other requirements that just aren't, oh, we were able to do it for this use case, but not that use case because we aren't able to accept phone calls. And so that's one thing that Andgo has been able to do is go to that enterprise level and meet those rules and facilitate those rules so that it is actually truly automated for them. Now, what you're right though, as far as competing against status quo, that's a big challenge that we have, right? And so the hope here is from a timing perspective, but then also just looking at it, it's a small community. The track record we have is pretty impressive, and so these folks want to get these solutions there. So it's something that definitely that we're aware of, and as far as a better solution is one aspect of it, combined with sort of the timing of stresses within this space now.
I have a quick one. Doing a little LinkedIn stalking of you as well. It looks like you've been working on this for 6 or 7 years. So talk a little bit through kind of your history with the business. And then maybe, like, do you view this as more a great business that could be bootstrapped into, $20-30 million of revenue over the next 5 years? Or like, what is kind of the upside scenario? And what kind of leaps do we have to make in terms of, if the upside scenario, is doing all these other phases, what type of intellectual leaps do you kind of have to make to believe that, in terms of like kind of convincing customers to let you do it?
Yeah, I abide. Absolutely. Love the background. So where we're at is so start off with the first part of the question, the journey. And so yes, we've been around for a long time. We got started off as consultants, building a solution for a healthcare provider that had an issue with solving this problem. We were contractors. We built tools that eventually became this platform as we sort of kept automating different aspects of the process. From there, we sort of switched into that professional services role. That's where we became domain expertise and continued to expand and work with other healthcare organizations. About 3 years ago, we made the shift to that product SaaS model, right? We built out the tool long enough to the point where, hey, we have something here that we're able to scale and move faster. And that's sort of what you're seeing now as far as those revenue, which is why we're raising the money. As far as, the leaps and demands of this isn't to be profitable, or this isn't to sort of like reach the promised land. Like in a sense, we have a very solid business right now that can definitely 10x or 20x over the next 5 years, just serving the market that we are. We see a big pain point here that we're able to address, and we address it well. Where we're seeing this is, okay, let's think further. Let's think about the real problem. And so this kind of comes back to these healthcare organizations. And so the answer, that a lot of times folks ask us is like, well, we're basically delivering an answer whether or not they can fill a shift. And when that answer is no, they don't really have any tools to go from there. So that's sort of where we're looking to build it out. There's tons of efficiencies to be gained by automating these processes in that regard. And so where I feel Andgo provides is we have a very high floor. Of course, we have as good of enough chance to make $1 billion as any of these other companies that you're going to see. But what we have is a proven model that we can definitely 10x or 20x. And so that's kind of where what we're looking for is raising $5 million here. We're in the middle of a round. We're looking to build out a world-class team, make our marketing efforts louder. And just by acquiring 89 customers, we'll be able to get to 20 million ARR in 35 months from now. And that's the thing is we're not raising money to pay our bills. We're raising money to pursue an opportunity that we've been working on for 6 years, and we've seen the growth there. So, I'm happy to connect and talk further about this as far as that goes, some of those specifics. But yeah, we have a solid plan here. Now we're looking to accelerate it and make it bigger, just because of what we've seen as an opportunity in the market.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much, Tom Ross, CEO at Andgo Systems. Thank you to the whole team over at Andgo. I want to remind you all that you can learn more about these innovators at the virtual exhibit hall available on the side of your screen. I know that Adam Dakin has a hard stop at 1:20. Adam, is that still correct?
Yeah, I was actually just shouting up a note into the chat box right now that I got to drop off.
Well, we wanted to thank you so much for joining us here today. I know that our other two panelists will be staying on for our next panelist, or our next innovator, but I wanted to thank you, Adam, before you hopped off. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, my pleasure. Appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Great. So up next, we have our last, but certainly not our least innovator. We'd like to welcome Dr. Vineet B.K. Johnson, President and CEO of iRegain, a neurorehabilitation for stroke patients looking to regain hand function. Take it away, Vineet.
Thank you, Justin. That was a wonderful introduction. Loved it. Okay, my name is Vineet Johnson. I'm the founder and CEO of iRegain. I'm a physical therapist and a neuroscientist by training. My job today is to introduce iRegain to you. When someone gets a stroke, a part of the brain is damaged. As a result, their hand function could be compromised. There's nothing wrong with the hand itself, but the connection from the brain to the hand is compromised, we at iRegain help restore their hand function by creating new circuitry around the damaged area of the brain, thereby helping them live independently once again. We do this through deep science, deep research, deep advanced engineering, and advanced protocols and software. iRegain wants to be the Livongo of stroke rehab. For just one moment, put one hand down, put it in your pocket, or keep it still, and try what it would be if you were not able to move that hand again for the rest of your life. That is the problem when someone gets a stroke goes through. They're completely not able to use their hand. A task as simple as lifting that glass of water is Herculean, to say the least. 800,000 people in the US face this problem approximately each year, and 15 million worldwide. 70% of them have varying level of hand function paralysis. They have no effective, affordable intervention that helps them gain their independence again. They're forced to live with their disability pretty much for the rest of their lives. So in the current standard of care, what exactly happens? Someone gets a stroke, they go to a hospital, they're medically managed, and they're sent home. If they're really lucky and they got some good insurance, they get some rehab, which largely focuses on standing, walking, and balance training. But the hand function itself is largely ignored. And we at iRegain want to change that so that these individuals can live independently once again. We want to provide a solution where none exists at this point in time. So our new paradigm is the establishment of a new rehab paradigm that leverages the novel IOMT platform to ensure they're provided the required therapy that they need. Also, in addition to this, we collect the data over time, and this data not only allows us to do an AI system, but it also allows us to potentially dominate the market space in the future. So we deploy this new paradigm through our smart connected system. When a clinician in a hospital, in a rehab center, or a clinic gets the system, they go to the iRegain modules, which has various modules. The one category of modules we refer to as protocols. There's about 16 different modules, each one referring to a particular function. For example, one will refer to a hand function that looks at holding a coffee mug, something else holding a pen. So it's a very targeted function-oriented approach. And once they pull out one of those modules, they can pick a game if the patient's interested in a gamified format, and they could provide the therapy in the clinic, in the long-term care center, in the rehab facility, or download a telemedicine module, provide the same care in the comfort of the patient's home. We have a product with which we conduct our customer and clinical validation trials at the point of time. Over the next 12 months, we look to converting that into a commercial version of our device. So our ecosystem is defined by three characteristics: the company, customer, and the user. iRegain, when it sells its products and services, including the SaaS platform options, to the customer, iRegain generates revenue. When the customer then either provides the services to the user using existing CPT codes or through existing telemedicine CPT codes, or resells the product to the user, iRegain generates revenue. Our business model is defined by a B2B model to start with, where we sell the product to the various clinicians, clinics, subacute care centers, and rehab hospitals. All of the service providing CPT codes already exist in the US. The telemedicine codes exist, and we have a very clear case for incremental revenue and an ROI of 2 to 3 months. And as the market matures, the clinician then potentially resells the product to the individuals through a B2B to C model. We will also pursue a B2C predominantly from an advertising and marketing point of view. In other words, kind of like one of those greatest pharmaceutical companies that would say, here's the latest and greatest drug, talk to your doctor about it, kind of create a market pull in the process. From a competitive point of view, there are three categories of devices. The first category is what you call passive devices, which include squeeze balls, elastic bands, and gloves. They do not provide long-term neuroplastic changes in the brain. The second category is FES, or electrical stimulation, very similar to the passive devices. They do not provide long-term neuroplastic changes in the brain. They're very similar to a crutch. Once you take the crutch away, there are no benefits in the long term for them. The robotic active devices, on the contrary, though effective, are cost prohibitive and requires a clinician to stand there for the duration of the therapy. For a fraction of that cost, iRegain offers a clinically affordable a clinically effective and an affordable solution. Three important characteristics here. It's easy to use. Patients can use it at home, and they do not require a clinician to stand by them and supervise the whole time. What this actually means is it is unique. The very unique factor that really puts iRegain apart from everyone else is the 16 protocols. No one else has these protocols. Number two, you can take these protocols and it's essentially a micromanaged exercise regimen. So you collect this data over time, which allows you to personalize the care to the patient. And very, very importantly, create the AI system and potentially dominate the market space in the future. Our evidence indicates.
One sec. I'm just trying to understand, why is it that the standard of care now, the robotics or active devices, why do they not create neuroplastic changes to the brain and yours does?
So the robotics basically does not have any help tool. It just, they give a tool to a clinician, says, and then tell them to work on it. So $250,000, and a clinician has to stand there the whole time to provide the therapy. So from a clinical evidence point of view, 18 one-hour sessions, patients came in for 6 weeks. And as you notice, the muscle activity from pre-therapy to post-therapy went significantly higher, just 6 weeks. And if you look at the other side, what does this mean for the patient? Both objective and subjective data indicated that there were significant improvements where patients felt they were able to do more things in that duration of time. So from an IP perspective, we have a very high competitive barrier and a very low regulatory barrier, which simply means the time to market is very short. Ours is a class 1 device in US, Canada, and EU. We have a very, very strong team. Ranjit and Vineet have 25 plus years experience in scientific and research and clinical side of things. Mike Dolinar, 25 plus years in the technology space. Samir in marketing and sales. Joel, 45 plus years experience in startup building, business development, exit experience, and venture capital experience. We have assembled a very strong clinical advisory board and strategic business advisors. Dr. Jocelyn Harris is the author of the GRASP protocol, which is the manually delivered hand function therapy, which is the gold standard of therapy today. She's the chair of our clinical advisory board. With word of mouth, we've generated significant interest in a number of clinics and hospitals. We have collaborations with a number of universities in US, Canada, Israel, and India. From a financial projection point of view, we break even by year 2, net margin of 30% or greater by year 4, revenues 50 plus million by year 5. We plan to raise, we've raised more than $1 million till date and achieved number of milestones. Currently, our plan is to raise $2 million, complete our manufacturing, create a strong sales and marketing hire and a sales pipeline, develop a customer development base. Our clinical validation is predominantly achieved through non-dilutive funding, so our funds will not be used towards that. In short, it's a large but poorly met market, compelling value proposition, very strong IP, low risk regulatory, multiple revenue streams, and a clinically effective solution. We want every patient, every clinician, every investor to say, iRegain. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Outstanding presentation. We'll open it up now to questions from our investor panel. Gyan, Rachel, I hand it over to you.
I'll ask a quick one, or a quick couple. How much are you expecting the medical device to cost?
We're looking at $8,000 in the US.
Okay, and how many of these kind of clinics are there that would be potential customers?
So in the US, you have about 40,000 clinics and about roughly another 10 to 15,000 rehab centers and all of that.
Okay,
in Canada, it's about 15,000 in total.
And then how do people traditionally distribute this type of product? Because medical devices have kind of standard distributors or Stryker, St. Jude's, Medtronic type of stuff. So how do you actually go about selling this? Is this hand-to-hand combat, hiring a salesperson, the right approach?
Samir, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so quickly, we have a phased approach to that. Initially, we are looking at targeting top 10 rehab centers, specifically focusing on stroke and using a direct sales model for our beta launch. Then ultimately, when we get market traction and a lot of validation and customers, will go with a distributor. Like you said, there is a couple of big companies, ACS being one of them, and Physiologic, and there are similar like big companies that distribute other physiotherapy equipment for leg, for body exercise and fracture management, things like that. So this would be a complementary product in their bag of tools that they can go and distribute broadly in the US.
Thank you.
I would say
Thank you, Gyan.
so much. I'm sorry, go right ahead, please. I'm sorry, Rachel. I thought you had a question. Yeah, I was just going to conclude now. I think I want to be respectful of our panel, and I want to be respectful of their time. So thank you so much, Vineet and Samir. Really appreciate your presentation. At this time, I just wanted to thank our investor panel once more. Thank you to Gyan Kapur of RTP Seed, RTP Ventures, who will be joining us again here tomorrow for the Innovators Showcase at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you to Adam Dakin. I know he has left us already, but his partner, Steve Barsh, will be joining us back here tomorrow again at 2 p.m. And thank you to Rachel Butler, Director of the Catalytic Impact Fund. Thank you so much.